welcome to the brand new edition of Policy Watch. I'm Kriti Mishra. Today we'll take a closer look at the new agriculture export policy. The Union Cabinet has cleared the agriculture export policy, which aims to double agri-exports to $60 billion by the year 2022. The objective is to harness export potential of Indian agriculture through suitable policy instruments and make India global power in agriculture. The agri-related exports from the country this year is expected to be around $37 billion, which is $7 billion more than the last fiscal. The policy seeks to diversify the export basket and destinations. The implementation will have an estimated financial implication of over 1,400 crore rupees. And for more on this, I'm joined by Dr. Subhash Pandey, Special Secretary, Ministry of Commerce and Industry, and Mr. Prem S. Vashishtha, former Director, Agricultural Economics Research Center, University of Delhi. Welcome to Rajya Sabha Television, all of you. Coming to you, Dr. Pandey, India is one of the major exporters and producers of agri-produce. Despite that, for all these years, we did not have an agri-export policy. How important was it to have an overarching agri-export policy to propel agri-exports?
You see, India is host to almost 1/6 of the world's population, as also of the livestock. But in terms of agricultural exports, although we occupy 10th position in the world, but it is hardly about 2%. So that shows that at the top, it is dominated by a few countries, and therefore, even when you are in 10th position, you only command 2% share. This $37 billion, which we are planning to double to $60 billion by 2022, and even in next few years up to $100 billion. So that will be capturing the relatively bigger share of the world export market. And the main thrust of this, it is a part of a bigger strategy to double farmers' income by 2022. And how do we do that? It is only lies in terms of diversification. As you know, agriculture is one business enterprise, if I may call, which is for very good reasons heavily regulated and protected. But for better reasons, there is also need to deregulate aspects of it, especially marketing to provide incomes to farmers. So I'll give more details on that as we go along.
Right. Mr. Vashishtha, help us understand the crucial highlights and salient features of this new agri-export policy.
Well, you see, I would say major shift from the past is, first thing is to provide a stable trade regime. See, so far we have been switch off, switch on policy, that you have sometimes minimum export price, sometimes you will ban some of the exports. Now this kind of instability in the whole situation leads to all kinds of problems. India, right, one extreme, India not being a reliable supplier of certain commodities, two, excessive subsidies and market support. So this has raised several problems. One, that uncertainty with the exporters. Two, on the other extreme, you have certain objections in the WTO.
Right.
That our policies are not consistent with WTO provisions, rules and regulations. So new policy also looks at it that anything that you do now, it has to be consistent with WTO provisions, which leads to a larger thinking that market has to play a major role. So far, we have been focusing more on support to the farmers, directly or indirectly, in some cases very directly, in some cases indirectly. This is what, the controversy in WTO, that what is the domestic support to the agri-exports. Now, when you say market has to play a larger role, it leads to another issue that you are supporting through MSP, minimum support price, then you are procuring, and then out of procurement, which is again involve a lot of subsidy. And if you want to export some of the products, then again it leads to objection. They say it's not competitive at the global prices without subsidy. So these are some of the very major issues. The third thing is, having tackled that thing, having developed a framework that market should play more important role policy should be WTO consistent. Then the third thing is, what is the strategy? The strategy that the policy envisages is that you will have a cluster approach, and this would be at the district level. You
Yes.
identify products, agri products, and identify districts where you have a comparative advantage, both in terms of production efficiency and the quality of the product. Then you link up these clusters with value chain, the whole value chain. Infrastructure has to be developed, cold chain has to be developed. And to me, because you see the whole thing, we this see as a subset for a larger objective of doubling farmers' income, then the major issue would be, where is the farmer in this whole game? So unless you link the farmer with the market, and farmer plays a very important role, it becomes a stakeholder in the entire value chain. Now this is the most crucial part and most difficult part, I would say, how to put farmers at the center of the value chain, whether it would be through producers organizations, to cooperative societies. So it leads to another issue, institutional development. Apart from technology and infrastructure development, institutional development is a very major aspect where the farmer becomes a major stakeholder in this entire game. So this is a, I would say, three-pronged strategy: developing infrastructure, making it WTO consistent, letting market play a major role. This is a major thing. Then we come to next part of the discussion if you have more questions.
Right. Dr. Pandey, he is raising a very legit point. How do we link farmers with the markets?
Yeah, not only in the context of export, in general, as I said, the deregulation is required in the agricultural marketing. And in recent years, there has been a major advances made, development of an electronic platform and a model APMC Act implementation is making good progress, and we will see more progress being made in the months to come. You see, as I said, this is the most regulated, this is the only business person who doesn't have the freedom to sell where he wants and the price that we want. So it is because of several other factors, but this freedom to sell, that has to be brought in by the market segmentations. They have to be removed through a technology enabled platform, and the effort is in that. So as part of this export policy also, there is a vision that the state level taxation, mandi fees and others, insofar as they relate to exports, they can be unburdened on the exports to facilitate it. Apart from then the cluster approach, as Dr. Vashishtha mentioned, because it is not the production which is the problem in the exports, it is the technical barriers to trade in terms of the quality, the what we call sanitary and phytosanitary conditions. So if you are suppose exporting shrimp, then whether the fish has been caught using turtle extruding devices, or if there are food processed food, how much is the residual chemicals or pesticides. So it is on those aspects which require R&D interventions, capacity build up, little bit of infrastructure, that the policy will focus on.
But taking a cue from what you said, Dr. Pandey, the government talks about providing institutional mechanism for extensive permeation of Indian agri products and to also remove market access barriers. How would this policy actually deal with the sanitary and phytosanitary issues?
It is in terms of developing the testing infrastructure in a cluster based approach. Right now also we have a scheme where we trade related infrastructure development scheme, where we fund this kind of a advanced technology being set up to screen the material going for it. The inspection regime can be made more rigorous and more again enabled technologically. So these will be the aspects of this implementation.
Right now, Dr. Tajamul Haque is also joining us on this discussion. Dr. Haque, tell us what are the major challenges staring at Indian agri-exports and how will this new agri-export policy address those issues?
I think the major problem in the context of agricultural export so far, actually, not just recently, from the very beginning, I should say, for the last 20 years at least, I see this, since liberalization, 1995 onwards, we have been following a very ad hoc kind of policy regime. When there is a, say, for instance, surplus in any product, and you need to export, and also you need to, remove or at least reduce the export duty and all that, that you don't do. And when everything is over, only after 1 month, 2 months, and 3 months, when there is no, this kind of situation, and then you try to reduce export. Similarly, in the case of import duty, we have seen the same thing. When we don't need, to import, we have to import because of the liberal kind of system that we have, we reduce the import duty. For instance, last year, so what happened? In the case of pulses, we had a bumper production internally, produced more than what we need normally. And also we imported, we had a huge stock already. We imported again because of low import duty. And also we had contracted some African countries to produce for us. That also we did. So I think these are the things which must not be there. We must get out of this kind of ad hoc regime in policies. Sugar sector particularly, we have suffered a lot. Third thing is that we say in the context of current FTAs, in the dairy sector, we are going to face a huge challenge with Australia. They have started questioning certain subsidies that we give. Sugar, already they are questioning in the WTO. Brazil, now that we thought of giving some subsidy for ethanol production and see how we can do our best. But then Brazil has come into the picture, they are questioning us. So USA already has been questioning for several things. So what I am saying, one thing is okay, like having some kind of quality control and international norms and standards have to be followed. That is all right. But as far as the policy regime is concerned, we have to be very practical. And whenever keeping in view the supply-demand situation internally, the import-export duty has to be variable. It should be automatically triggered that way. There should not be, we should not wait for the cabinet to decide for months, and then ultimately again we are in trouble. So I think these are the things which we should address.
Right. So finally, we have a stable policy regime.
Yes, yes.
Coming to you, Mr. Vashishtha, according to the policy, exports of primary agricultural produce, for instance, onions, that would be reviewed periodically. So effectively, this policy would also address the domestic inflationary concerns?
Sure. You see, onion, tomato, these are the, they are very sensitive commodities, and you see the crash of prices in the domestic market, and then you suddenly see you have a demand, you export commodities. So this kind of highly unstable situation is faced in the case of these commodities. You need a long-term policy for this. It needs both the buffer stock kind of situation, plus, as Dr. Haque said, variable duty structure. So these are very sensitive commodities. With your permission, may I refer to one of the policy issues which the document mentions?
Please go ahead, sir.
That they say identify 3 kinds of situations. One, the commodities where you have surplus, the commodities where you may have a shortage but globally available. It means you can import them. And third, the commodities where you have shortage in the domestic market and global market. Now, to me, like the sensitive commodities case is very well applicable in such a situation. I would go one step further, that a mere bureaucratic solutions is not going to help you. That somebody sits in office in government and adjusts the duties. It needs a lot of research. A lot of research would be needed, and first to identify commodities. Then the major problem is that this list is not going to be permanent. Depending on the market situation, these things keep on changing. So you have to visualize everything in a very dynamic setting. what is the global situation, what is the domestic production, what is the instability in the global and domestic market. So this list may also keep on changing. So this is one big issue. The other related issue is from farmers' point of view. When you say diversification, you take diversification as one of the elements for export strategy and also raising farmers' income. Now, fortunately, as a part of the research team of the National Council of Applied Economic Research, which was associated with the committee, work on doubling farmer income, we did some exercise. We did exercise every state and every important commodity of the state. For the first time, this detailed exercise was done. Now, this exercise, again, I would say was very useful to give signals, but again, a static thing. Things change because farmers respond to market signals and they allocate land area accordingly. So the entire situation, now I link it, the two theoretical aspects to the policy framework, the one that diversification issue and also identification of three kinds of commodities. Everything needs a lot of research and you need to develop models which can give you at a quick notice an answer to that situation, that what the market situation is and how you are going to adjust your duties and tariffs. So this is one issue I would advocate. I think a lot of government need to get a lot of research done.
So the decision has to be according to the dynamic situation.
Dynamic
situation. Coming to you, Dr. Pandey. Now, we've been talking about exports of agri-products. This year, if you talk about this year, 20% hike. Now, in this context, how easy or difficult is it to achieve the target of $60 billion by the year 2022?
To put this policy formulation in perspective, may I remind that in the current year's budget announcement, Honorable Finance Minister has said that the policy will be to liberalize agricultural export. And soon after the budget, all the export restrictions were lifted on all edible oils except perhaps mustard oil, and the export duty on sugar was also removed. So, as rightly observed by fellow panelists, in the export market, you have to establish yourself as a reliable supplier. If you are occasionally there in the market and occasionally go out of the market, you don't build the image of a reliable supplier. And for that, the policy stability is very important. And this is inbuilt in the agriculture export to provide a stable trade policy. So the rates may vary from time to time, but we should not expect arbitrary bans and to the trade altogether. And as far as the issue of dynamic response to the which is very essential at a technical level, and for which what I see the response coming, we should be pinning a lot of hopes on the electronic platform for agricultural marketing. As you know, in the earlier manually controlled markets, the price discovery or price collection, price data collection and formulating policy based on that, it's a time taking and a bit of fraught with its own risk. But in a digital India environment where the prices are being collected at multiple points and in a dynamic way, I think it should be possible to formulate our response also in a dynamic fashion. So short of outright curbs, the duties can be modulated. And once again, let me remind, the policy is talking about these still regulated part on the primaries part of it. But whatever the value can come is on the value added products and not the core primary food crops, but the value added products, say marine fruits and vegetables, and where there is a lot of that. Take for example, and it also talks of importing raw material for processing and re-export. Right. So the classical cases of a cashew nut. It can be processed in so much of high value added products in small packs. So that is nothing to do with the kind of a situation we are talking about, onion or wheat or rice on there. So it is in these products there is a huge potential. So,
Right. So we're talking about the perishable commodities and also talking about the potential. Dr. Haque, tell us, how can the government provide infrastructure and logistical support to the exporters?
I think it is possible to link it that because first of all, we have been facing the shortage, acute shortage in terms of cold storage and cold chain facilities. And for the last several years, actually, we have been talking about it, but not much has happened. So I think this should be one of the priority areas. Without that, you cannot address the problems of the perishable commodities in agriculture, whether it's tomato or onion. Onion this season you have seen 50 paise a kilo, the Maharashtra farmers are selling. I mean, why should they sell? I mean, that does not cover even their labor cost, not to speak of the cost of production and all that. So what I'm saying, I think because of the lack of adequate infrastructure, both cold storage and cold chain systems to take it to the airports and cargo and then to outside markets. We have a very good market actually in our neighborhood itself. Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, Nepal, they are all our captive markets for exports. And onion is in great demand in Bangladesh, or in Indian onion. Sri Lanka similarly, they demand our onion and we export to them. But then because of this kind of uncertainty and all kinds of, I should say, mismanagement, and suddenly you impose restrictions that we won't export onion. Suddenly you will fix minimum export price and all kinds of things. I think you can have a range, reasonable range, I understand, but that should not vary from month to month. There should be some kind of stability. Again, the question of stability comes. So adequate infrastructure in terms of cold storage, full transportation system, and then at the local level, some kind of good airports and air transport system. That is not there in most of the places. Other than Andhra Pradesh, I find most of the other states are not really targeting the small towns for air cargo and air transportation. So unless you have that, you will not be able to target your export market.
Right. Mr. Vashishtha, now that you're talking about states and the participation of states is of paramount importance, how do the states make changes in their APMC Act and also remove the mandi tax?
Yeah, sure. I mean, first of all, the political economy, because state, they have to make up their mind because they are getting a lot of revenues, especially state like Punjab and other places. This revenue is a big shot in the arm for them for their expenditure, to meet their expenses. So they have to make up their mind that they have to do away with this thing. And another, model act is available, APLMC. They have to adopt that basically. So these things have to be done without any delay. So this is where the state's cooperation is needed, and its speed is very important. If you keep on thinking for years, you are left behind in the race. Then next thing would be coming at the district level, because you are thinking the policy envisages clusters, to set up at the district level. So which presumption is that infrastructure, good infrastructure would be developed,
Right, sir.
Value chain would be developed.
Right, sir.
So
finally,
this
we're
is
talking about Brand India. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for sharing your thoughts on that very crucial topic. So the policy is expected to double India's share in global agri-exports by integrating with global value chain. That's all we had for you in this edition. Thanks for watching and stay tuned to Rajya Sabha Television.